Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with the preview of the TRE mod. Got a complaint that my audio part was getting a bit low, so I upped it a little bit. Hope not too much. You can give me feedback. Too high, too low, whatever. Need to know that because I don't sit and listen through the whole. Don't have the time to sit and listen through the whole episode. Excuse me. To make sure it's all good. So let me know that. Okay. Been doing some work on it. I think in the last 2 days or so, made something like 13 new events for TRE that have moved over. More or less, the main story arc of for Czechoslovakia is now converted over and complete, including some expansions to it. That's mostly what I've been doing. Oh, I'm sure I'm going to find more interesting flavor events that are going to come up for either Bohemian Moravia as occupied Czechoslovakia, or as the Slovak state, or something over time. But all of the old TRE stuff has been converted over, and I think all of the events for integrating it in with this are now complete. Been doing some work, and now I am not against the idea, and which means I'm very willing to support, but it is not a strong, shall we say, area of focus, is like going down Danzig for Slovakia or befriend Poland. I'd be happy to make events someday relating to alt history, but the primary purpose of Third Reich events is to have fun. The secondary purpose of Third Reich events is to be an educational thing. It's, if you ever think not, some of the paragraphs get a bit long, hey, you can stop reading halfway through and jump down to the bottom to see what the question yes or no to create Slovakia or not, or something like that. You don't have to read all of the details, but if you start to think it's getting too educational and not enough fun, love that feedback once you start either playing it or whatever. Love that feedback. But like I was saying, it's a big part of it is educational. So but also I believe, in which I you've been following some of the stuff I've been saying on the Paradox forum, especially the thread dealing with the future and the future vision of Hearts of Iron that I've been going. You sort of know where I think on these things. I think it's more important, which I think they've sort of lacked to some degree, in a significant degree, with Hearts of Iron 4, of not getting the history. And I'm not talking about historical date or whatever. I'm just talking about getting things to work historically right first, and then worrying about the alt history, where they've been very much, oh, well, you do all this alt history stuff, it could be really cool. Well, I think history's really cool, and dealing with the realities of the time period. So with TRE, we're going to nail down the historical paths and get those solid right and first, before I start going down, some of these other paths here. Again, I am fine. There is a whole, it is an alt history path that I developed, partially just because I was dealing with, a long time ago, I forget his screen name, a Swiss player, helped me out some. Plus I was finding various both National Socialist and Fascist groups in Switzerland, and I'm dealing with their Germany's interaction with them, that I did create a few sort of alt histories based in history, but what if, basically the alt history is what if Germany invaded, and there were a couple of opportunities, including one that we seen early on in this is the sort of an unprepared Germany invading Switzerland in the Gustav murder situation when he was killed there. So we do have some, and like I say, happy to support them, but mostly, and it just I don't know, 10 or 20% of the events dealing with Switzerland got into the alt history, and the only alt about it is sort of if Germany has supported either historic levels or greater than historical levels of support for the National Socialists, what would happen post an invasion? After whether you just declare war, or you take one of two opportunities to declare the war, what happens afterwards is sort of the alt history, and that whole path has not been converted over yet. So we have not been seeing events with that, but so we're now on this. Enough talking. Let's get going. And so I played through this sort of once briefly. Got a little ways ahead, and some of these are sort of popping up right now because they should have popped up earlier, but they've been added since the last video. Okay. Being an American, I definitely have a different cultural experience than Europeans. And some people, well, but we all have driver's license, and yes, basically every American has a little, nowadays it's a photo ID. Didn't finish the statement. So we all have, mostly it's a driver's license, but you can get a state ID that, if you can't drive, or don't know how, or whatever. So, it has your photo on it, and it has your basic ID. Okay, but, back to my knowledge, back in the 1930s, driver's license did not have your photos on them. Nobody walked around with a government ID in the United States at this time. I mean, just about nobody. You might have had cards with your name on them. Could be like a business type card or calling card, and that would be very few people. But you might have, if you had a wallet, you might have a driver's license. Now that would have your name on it, but it wouldn't have a photo ID. You might have a library card that again would have your name on it. And the way you would you would sign the card, and so that if somebody wanted to check to see if it's you, they'd have you sign a piece of paper and compare the signature to the ID card. So, and I've shown some of this. I've collected a bunch more and just haven't made events for either version, but I did when I was running through this, is the amount of IDs that these people had, and they carried around with them, because I think to some degree, and I don't know whether this membership almost passport-like thing was something you carried in your pocket all the time, or whether it was something you only took when you went to meetings. But I'm just sort of as being somebody who's not used to this, is sort of fascinated and wanting to show, and the amount of time that it takes to prepare these things. So this is your basic, this is the front cover of it. Inside you have a photo, personal details, and then as you basically pay, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or whatever, they add stamps over the dates or whatever to show that you're paid up member of the NSDAP, or well, the SDP here. And as the war goes on, and I think more and more people kept all these things as a sort of a packet of multiples of these things to sort of prove your identity as the security state apparatus. And I'm presuming that for every photo in a photo thing, they also had it on file in one or two other places. So if they're looking for Karl Heinz or something, they get the file photo and find that out and quickly run duplicates off, so they can run around and hunt down the suspicious person or something like that. So it just, compared to the way the United States was. Now, I'm not saying if you have, I don't know, if you're working on once the war gets going for the United States, you're working on a, I don't know, the Norton bomb site or some sort of secure thing, and you're building these things in the factories, that then those kind of passes wouldn't have your photo IDs on them. But that's, and definitely you're getting into the Manhattan Project. Those probably all had photo IDs to get in and out, but that's for a super secret government program, not your daily life. Not that, oh, you're a member of the Democratic Party, or you're a registered member of a, the Republican Party. In the United States, you just go in and sign a thing, fill it out what party you are, and that's it. You don't pay anything. You don't get a membership card, card-carrying member. We don't have member cards for being involved in those things. They're just sort of on file in the government, and when you go to vote, when they're doing the party primaries, you're just listed with your party affiliation, so they give you the right ballot to vote on. And so if you're a Republican, you can't vote in the Democrat. Well, it depends on what states you are in, and each state does it differently. But in a lot of states, if you're a Republican, you can't vote in the Democratic primary, or if you're the Green Party, you can only vote in the Green Party primary, which often is just one person. But for local congressional or city council or whatever members, so when they do have the party affiliated, and when they're non-party affiliated or just your general election where you can vote for any party member, it doesn't matter what, and it's not relevant what party you are. But so there's none of this card-carrying situation, and so that's just fascinating by me. So a little extra thought there, but just the levels of state control is just a bit shocking to a lot of Americans. Okay, so that should have happened a little before this, but just been added. Okay, we've got the Sudetenland. We're going to demand the Sudetenland. This is just the focus is completed. So now, Germany has been, and I still probably want to make a, I know I said a minute or a few minutes ago that I'm probably done with the overarching chain, and I am going to stop myself making new events now and go to, because I want to get all the stuff converted over from TRE for Black Ice to TRE for Hearts of Iron 4. And it's not TRE 1 and 2 because they're basically the same thing, just for the different game. But one thing I have not covered well is the amount of violence that was going on. We talked a little bit about the Frank's sort of struggle with the police once, but there was a not very active, but an ongoing low-level guerrilla warfare. There were various Freikorps elements, as they were called. Basically, they were mostly Sudeten Germans that were making cross-border raids, that Germany had set up several training camps, trained and armed and equipped, and then would send them back across the border basically ununiformed, because they weren't meant to be German soldiers. They were meant to be disgruntled, or look like or appear like for the news, disgruntled local Sudetans resisting. I'm just giving you their line, not what I think they were, or what this was the image they were trying to create, I want to say. Not that that's what they were, but resisting Czech oppression, trying to make stir up problems. And so if any of them were captured or killed, they might have an SDP membership card, but they wouldn't have anything saying German Army on them, even though they've been trained in camps in Germany and equipped with weapons, from whether they were German manufactured, German Army weapons, or simply Germany acquired the weapons on some other method and handed them over, I don't know, Austrian surplus from the First World War or something, that since Czechoslovakia was part of the old Austro-Hungarian Empire, they might theoretically have been able to get their hands on or something. And there were various elements of these, and I really haven't covered that well yet, but that's all been going on. So there's all this stuff, and Hitler's been making a lot of threats. So Chamberlain asked for a personal meeting to find a solution, to avert war, because Hitler's threatening war. And okay, this is, I don't think you're going to find a credible historian that's going to disagree with this. There might be some, but I don't really think you're going to find many. Hitler wanted a war with Czechoslovakia, but what he didn't want was a war at this time with France and Britain. So he was creating, justifying claim, justifying a war goals, which was either to protect the Sudeten people or to liberate the Sudeten people and return it to Germany, or whatever the sort of justification. He was going to end up taking a bunch more, but he wanted a real sort of hard-fought war against these forts, against the Czech army at its height, as a training war, as a bloodying war for the German army, to show how good to the rest of the world, how good the German army is, have the German army figure out what it's doing right, what it's doing wrong, all kinds of elements like that. He wanted this war, but he definitely knew we're a little late because obviously it's September. I don't know, and if you guys want to give feedback on it, sometimes I've removed dates from things because I personally am not a person that is a for history purposes, and it may be sort of strange, I'm not a date person. What day it happened is, unless I'm really getting down deep in it, doesn't matter to me. It's a cause and effect, a sort of chain of events is where my interest in history is. So to a point, dates are unimportant, but they are part of the educational, and whether, obviously, they don't match up. So whether if you think that that's breaking immersion or helping immersion, I don't know, but feedback on that would be appreciated. But so we're slightly behind the curve here, partially because of the focuses are sort of arbitrary and whatever, and I'm tying the focus to the events. So Chamberlain wants to stand down this war. He wants to keep the war from happening. So he believes that he's a rational person, and he probably was to some degree, and he believes Hitler was a rational person, because if you have the mindset of a Chamberlain, and I know some of you have complained when I start talking about Obama, and it is not an Obama bashing because he's a Democrat. It's this, he's a, his reasonable personness when he's facing, in my opinion, unreasonable people. When the U.S. was dealing with the Soviet Union, and we both had massive stocks of nuclear weapons, for the most part, I believe the Soviet leaders were rational people. They believed in the eventual spread of communism around the world, and they wanted to push that along, hasten that as fast as possible, but they did not want to blow up the world. So somebody like Jimmy Carter can rationally deal with the Soviet Union, because if it really looks like something that's going to drive you towards nuclear war, the Soviet Union will deal with you. Now, he might think that they're don't really want war, don't really want violence, when that I don't believe is the case, and so he's surprised and shocked when they invade Afghanistan. Okay, fine. Now, but everybody knew that Afghanistan was not going to cause a nuclear war. It's just too far out. And I know I'm going a bit politicky here, but it's just too far out. But what he didn't, and so, but the Soviets, like I say, were rational, and he was rational, and we didn't hype up to a nuclear war, so that wasn't a danger. Where Carter sort of failed was dealing with the hostage takers in Iran, because he thought that they were going to play by diplomatic norms and all this other stuff, and so he was a bit surprised by that. And I've talked to some people many years ago now. I got to know briefly the person who basically ran the Savak for the Shah of Iran, and he totally admitted he did not see the Iranian Revolution coming. he was concentrated on dealing with the leftists, the Mujahideen. Mujahideen in Iran, not the ones in Afghanistan, but the ones in Iran, were supported by the Soviets. So I got a lot of information from him on the situation. This is back in when I got this was the late 80s, long after he made it out. But he ran the security for the Tehran section and the Shah's prisons. I'm sure he was a very nice person running the Shah's prisons, because those were nice gardens. But he was very nice to me and the group that I was with. But so if you are dealing with a rational group, you can. The Iranian Revolution, they understand that they can be obliterated. They understand that they can be invaded. So, and they've achieved a goal of actually gaining a state. So they don't want to step back from that goal. But they are not interested in diplomatic norms and diplomatic peace. So turning over the hostages to somebody like Carter, no way, because it gets some attention around the world. But when you get a Reagan coming in, they're afraid that Reagan may invade. That is sort of the situation I'm talking about, and it's just the and this is not a Democrat-Republican thing, because you can look at somebody like Truman. Truman was a tough Democratic president. Kennedy and Johnson were tough Democratic presidents. Clinton, Bill Clinton, he was sort of on that edge between being a tough Democratic president and being a weak one. Carter was a weak one, and Obama are weak Democratic presidents. Weak in the international sense. So this is not, and you can also, mostly when you get the Republican side, mostly it's not so much a lack of toughness, it's more of an interventionist versus isolationist. A bunch of different Republican presidents want to withdraw from intervening in the world, but if something happens to, like the coal incident, a ship blows up or something like this, they will respond vigorously. But a bunch of them want to not be around. Then you get the Bush the elder and Bush the younger. They much more like intervening in the world. Bush the elder, Kuwait got invaded, and so he really sort of got that going. The younger, obviously 9/11, but they're sort of interventionists. Sort of the difference is you get within that. Okay, that's sort of, I guess, maybe too much politics, so we'll stop that now. But this Chamberlain just sort of gets me, because I like a lot of his sort of domestic type policies, and don't try to, but he did this to these minors and strike. Yeah, it ain't perfect, but generally he's a conservative politician. Generally, I like him, but his views on the international world were just dismal. And so, obviously, conservatives in Britain have a different mindset than conservatives in America. They're very different. They're not the same. You can't just and this is to the international viewers, so they understand that, like, you might think that, they're just like these Republicans, or the Republicans are just like them. But also to the Americans, a lot of times they hear about conservative politicians in other parts of other parts of the world, and they think that they're sort of like American Republicans. They're different. They have a different mindset. So Chamberlain really thought he could deal rationally with Hitler. I don't know what gave him the thought of that. A lot of people, I guess, didn't believe Mein Kampf, because I've read over 2/3 of it. I can't quite say, because I stopped and I jumped around a bit. I've read 100% of Mein Kampf many years ago, way back in my 20s. Sort of a rambling book. It's not very interesting. I mean, if you want to read it, go ahead, but you're not going to learn much, in my opinion. that you don't already know, but he definitely lays out his plans. Now, a lot of people just, he's just staking out the hardcore position, and he's willing to negotiate down. May sound like another politician today, but basically Hitler believed in Mein Kampf and wanted to achieve that as much as possible. With all of that, with all this rhetoric that they're going on, and with the behavior in Germany, I don't know why they really thought they were dealing with a rational person, except that their just worldview and their sort of ideology, personal ideology, or I guess worldview sort of covers it, that international leaders are rational people unless they were some sort of, tribal barbarian people off somewhere in the Far East or something. I'm talking about, again, in the 30s. That, if you're in charge of Germany, you've got to be a rational person, maybe with odd ideas, but a rational person. Well, they weren't dealing with that with the National Socialist regime, and Hitler in particular. So, Chamberlain thought that you could deal with Hitler. And that's, only just delays, you deal with things and it delays it. So, he comes, has a meeting with Hitler. You can read this. I know I talked on to this. Why did I come over here? I wasted my time. Hitler responded that if Chamberlain was willing to accept self-determination of the Sudeten Germans, he would be willing to discuss the matter. So then Hitler goes back, Chamberlain goes back to Britain to discuss it with the British cabinet. What are we going to do here? And then so he flies back, and he flies back to Godesberg here, and has another meeting with the Sudeten territories here. And pushes this forward here. And then they decide that the Churchill-Hitler talks aren't going to get this thing solved, so that they want to bring in a, Mussolini sort of, hey, I'll help negotiate the conflict. Delay the invasion and bring it in. So then Chamberlain brings in Edward Daladier. Mussolini's there, who does speak German, just in case you didn't know. I don't know if Count Ciano, I presume he does, because I always see him around. He was, to a large degree, I don't know if it was an official position, I forget, but he did a lot of foreign relations for Mussolini. Ciano there. Get together, and basically, which is sort of interesting, that one country that's not in the room is Czechoslovakia, where they're discussing carving Czechoslovakia. At some point, Chamberlain calls, and of course, back then, everyone knew that somebody was listening on the phone. So, sort of like today, you make a phone call, somebody was listening. And not just government people, there were all kinds of people listening to the phone. So obviously a bunch of people listened to the phone call. Chamberlain calls Bernays, if I'm saying that right, and basically says, don't fight this. In the end, let this happen. So I know we quickly went through this before, but I'm going in more detail with the events working right here. So we have a 80% chance for peace for our time, or 20% chance crisis. Let's see what we get this time. Peace for our time, like we did brief earlier. It's peace for our time, not peace in our time, though. It's been changed. The other option, if it doesn't go this way, it says that there's going to be resistance, and then you have a chance to either press the issue, which if you press the issue, you have a 50-50 chance between going to war with Britain and France as well as Czechoslovakia, or 50-50 chance of having peace. So it's 80-20, then 50-50. If you don't press the war because you haven't built up your army sufficiently, or your air force, and you're not ready for it. Now this is of course changed from some of my play style in Hearts. If you've watched my series of Hearts of Iron 3, the first 2 years through to the end of 1937, all I'm doing is building, other than basic supply maintenance, I am purely building ICs. But now I might be purely building civil ICs or something, though obviously I haven't been, but the arms factories are turning out arms, and so it's not maybe as big an issue of not being ready in 38 as it might be. But still, if you don't think you were ready for it and you get the other option, you can decide to back down. Now, you will never be able to go back to try to get the Sudetenland peacefully. You will have to declare war against Czechoslovakia, and which will bring France and Britain in, but that will happen when you're ready for it, as you think. You know, whatever that means. When you're ready for it is when it will happen. So, no war. We're going to go for that peaceful. Okay, now, what we're going to try to do here is, what I want to do is immediately go into the first Vienna Award. Notice I've moved it down to 28 days instead of 70 days, because it was approximately a month after the original Sudeten agreement. So I want to start making pin 3s. Now I want to start making okay, and I want to use these by 2. Support equipment. Decrease the factory for those 2. Okay, well, you remember the Graf Zeppelin 2, actually, yes. Well, they're not flying passengers around because of the hydrogen problem. One of the Goebbels has the bright idea of, because once they get the Sudeten territories, they're going to hold a vote, a plebiscite, basically, to say, do you want to be part of Germany? So they do all kinds of propaganda stunts. One of them is fly the Graf Zeppelin around, and flying a big thing in the air has got to be very impressive, so they fly it all over the place here, and you can read about it in some more detail. But that's a postcard that, sort of an airmail postcard that was on it, and there's the poster. Talked about throwing flyers off with these words on it, and so that's a photo of the poster. So presumably the flyers were very similar. You see the Heil Hitler salute thing with the being uncuffed or unchained here, and want everybody to vote yes. So now this gets back some of our national unity that we've lost just a little bit here, but we've lost in going through this. So that works. But now we're going to, okay, now everything popping up. Okay, now we've lost the, if it worked right, yes, we've lost the support, the SDP, because the SDP now goes away. It just becomes part of the NSDAP. They get some commemorative badges and whatever for being valiant fighters from the earlier period. But Hitler didn't get his war. Hitler also now has this big, as you can see here, big cancer or whatever right into the heart of Germany here that he wants to seal up. So my thought is that Hitler wants his war, small war, not the big war. Hitler wants a small war. And I know I've talked about it in the other series for Black Ice. My thought is, at this point, he should start pressing the Danziger peace issue and leave Czechoslovakia alone, and to have the war with Poland without getting the Western Allies involved. And I think that would have happened had they done that right. But Hitler still focused on Czechoslovakia. So and I hope it's clear enough without being too blatant, basically, if you want to move here, if you notice, has flag, and I gotta make a new title there, but has flag, or has, you know, flag check breakup, which is this. So if you want to go down this path, you have to support the breakup of Czechoslovakia. That's Joseph Tiso, obviously German for Slovakia there. This is the People's Party flag. That is we'll see it, the flag of the Carpathian Ukrainians in this part of Czechoslovakia, and that's sort of their pin, that is sort of a home rule slogan of something like I don't know, govern ourselves, or we ourselves, or I don't know, I forget what it translates into English as. But we have the chance now to support the breakup of Czechoslovakia some more. And no, I haven't looked or read anything about any particular documents, but as you'll see later on, I have read that evidence that I'm sure the Germans were helping provoke this at this time, and possibly before, but definitely this time. So we're going to support the breakup of Czechoslovakia, and only displays. I'm going to make the little pin badge a little larger, but that costing us 3% political power. Not taking nearly as the heaviest political effort as it did to support the Sudetendeutsch, but it is still an effort. And we got okay, now diplomatic reports are coming in. I need to time this a little better now. We shouldn't come on top of each other, because this should come first. We're getting diplomatic reports, and you can read it here. Basically, once and this is part of the reason it's happening so fast, is we're a little late on it, but once the Sudeten crisis was over and Germany got a bunch of territory, Hungary wanted to get back what was, sort of part of their region during the Austro-Hungarian Empire period. But this region here has basically roughly 50% or so of the population in that area are Hungarian. So there's obviously a lot of Slovaks there as well. But they invade Czechoslovakia. You can read a little bit about it there. Not major invasion, just sort of cross-border skirmishes, and are threatening to take major areas of Czechoslovakia, basically in the but it's also a little bit down here too, basically in the Slovak regions. And this is some of the whether it's the first incident that's talked about here, one of them, but Hungarian troops crossing over into Czechoslovakia on bicycles. So this is disrupting their relations. And then this is supposed to happen a few days later. I'll take a look at it and see why they doubled up on it. Then they set up the negotiations in Komarno. I presume that's a town or something near or along the border. Didn't look that up. And this is supposedly this group of Czechs and Hungarians. Now, when I say Czechs, most of them were actually Slovaks. They got Tiso and a few of the other Slovak independence people involved in it. At first they said, no, we don't have any involvement in it. But then the Czechs pointed out, yeah, but they're taking your parts of the country. Sort of like if we just decide, the national government decides to give in, well, it's not taking away Czech regions, it's taking away Slovak regions. So the Slovaks got involved in there, and I don't know identify who, but this is supposedly a picture of one of them. They're outside. This looks like they're on a hood of a car, but not this map, but looking at a map, and as part of the negotiations, maybe they're driving around looking at the border or something, I don't know, but they were trying to work out the border, and basically this deadlocks between the conflict between these things. Well, what now? the Zelinka, or Zelinska, sorry, agreement. Basically, the People's Party got all the various Slovak parties together, except for like the communists and maybe the socialists or something like that. But most all the parties together begin shortly after, days, weeks, months, but not more than I think 2 months. But shortly after the Munich Agreement, sorry, blanking on there for a second, got together and declared their sort of own regional own autonomous regions. So this basically means Slovakia is now a federal government. It is no longer a centralized government. It is now a federal government. Slovakia internally is going to govern itself. Maybe we should slow this up a little bit. Events are starting to come in like they should. Okay. Luft Zone West or whatever here. This is part of the building the West Wall, the whole rural region. They build a lot of anti-aircraft in here, and I figured it's roughly level 3. It's not a highest level of 5, but it's more than just a level 1. They build that up fairly heavily. Third Reich Events is really designed to make this period interesting. Occupying the borders, threaten the Czechs. Okay, well, this episode between my various talks have gone on long enough. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. Come back for more Hearts of Iron. And I do want feedback on this. If you've got any, love to hear it. See you next time for more.